everyone. Today's presentation is going to be about the Eightfold Path, more specifically the path to right livelihood. And I'm hoping by the end of this presentation that we will all have a better understanding of the path to right livelihood, what it means, how can it be found and practiced in modern day society, the importance of the practice of right livelihood, and I wanted to also present some relatable, relevant examples and some examples that contradict this path, and in that contradiction hopefully will lead to a better understanding of what it means to follow the path of right livelihood. So to have an understanding of that specific path, you need to understand what the Eightfold Path is. And it's incorporated in the practice of Buddhism. It is essentially the Buddhist guide to end suffering. And it's broken down into three essential elements, known as the threefold division of moral conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. And it's important to understand that although in most documents the path is presented to us in a numerical order, in Buddhism, all of the paths are practiced and learned simultaneously. So presenting them numerically makes for clean presentation, and it makes it easy for us to understand and follow, through the documents and research papers, articles. But in Buddhism, they practice them simultaneously, all as one. So the path to right livelihood falls under ethical conduct, which is part of the threefold division. And ethical conduct is built on the conception of universal love and compassion for all beings. So other humans, animals, our planet, they all fall under that ethical conduct. So the path to right livelihood, it is a practice of living in a way that is not going to bring harm to others. So not dealing in weapons, not dealing in meat production, like slaughterhouse or mass meat production factories, not selling intoxicants like alcohol and drugs, and also not consuming them. Buddhists typically do not consume alcohol at all because it contradicts the following of this path, and not dealing in the sale of living beings, so slavery, slaughter, sex work, all of those things are contradictory. And a few examples of how we can relate the path to our world today. One of them that I thought would be relevant is vegetarianism. So although Buddhists are not required to follow any dietary restrictions, it's not written anywhere that they cannot consume meat. The majority of Buddhists do follow a vegetarian diet because they don't participate in the production of meat. So if they're not participating in the production of meat, they're not going to eat meat that was produced in a way that is not considered ethical. So that's, although not a written rule, it's very common among Buddhists to follow that vegetarian diet. Another important topic that is contradictory to the path is child labor, unfair wages, and unfair employment. If you were to follow the path to right livelihood, you would not partake in any of those. And unfortunately, there's both in the United States and around the world, children that are forced to work in deplorable conditions with minimal or no pay. And that's something that, of course, is not ethically sound. So in Buddhism, they are only going to take jobs that are ethical. Another relevant point, which I have dealt with recently, is dishonest sales. So false advertisement of vehicles, of supplements, of housing. We're surrounded by advertisement. You open your phone and there's ad after ad after ad, and the goal of those ads is to get your attention. And they might be brightly colored or boldly printed and may not be exactly what you're expecting. So they're trying to get you to buy their product a lot of times by advertising falsely. And I recently was shopping for a car and dealt with what I believe to be a dishonest salesperson. And that can be dangerous. If you purchase a vehicle and you're told that nothing's wrong with it, and all of a sudden you drive it off the lot and something happens to the brakes or the transmission, and you weren't told about those problems, that's not an ethical way of conducting business. So again, in Buddhism, they're only going to hold jobs that are ethical. And I think that this is one of the most essential paths. Oh, another example is dealing in chemicals, so pesticides and things like that that are harming our planets, harming our crops and our animals. Again, not ethical and would not be practiced under this path. So, why I think this is one of the most essential paths under the Eightfold Path. Our livelihood is everything. So, we conduct the rest of our lives around our livelihood. Our speech, our effort, our mindfulness. It all comes back down to our livelihood. And you're not going to be able to practice those other paths if you are not living in a way that is ethical, if you're not being kind to others and honest with others, and treating our planet and our animals correctly. So, now that I have presented all of that information, I hope that you will all have a better understanding of this specific path. I would love to have any kind of feedback. I'm not sure if the comments will be open on this module, but it would be great to hear feedback from my classmates about my presentation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone else chose, which path everyone else chose to present about. I think this is a really important subject, and especially in today's society, if we all took a little bit away from this Buddhist practice of the Eightfold Path, I think that we would have a much more peaceful and healthy planet. We'd have better relationships with our peers. Our animals would be treated better, and we wouldn't be subject to false advertising. So again, I think it's a really important subject, and I really enjoyed presenting this information to you.